You won't believe what just came out about one of the most beloved stars from the Real Housewives franchise. This wasn't your usual reality TV drama, it was something no one saw coming. A shocking confession, not in front of the cameras, but through a heartbreaking social media post, revealed that she had been diagnosed with breast cancer. Fans were stunned. The woman they had always seen smiling, partying, and full of life was now sharing her deepest pain. But let me tell you, this was more than just a personal health issue. It exposed something deeper, something happening behind the scenes that most people had no idea about. It all started quietly. No fancy photo shoots, no filters, no designer outfits, just a raw, bare-faced photo of her with a caption that shook her followers. She wrote that she had been feeling tired, sore, and off for weeks, but she kept pushing through. Filming schedules were tight, events were nonstop, and like many women, she brushed it all off as stress or hormones. But here's the shocking part: she almost canceled her doctor's appointment. She had planned to skip it because of filming, but something inside told her to go anyway. That last minute decision changed everything. After a few tests, doctors found something unusual, a small lump. It didn't seem like much at first, but a biopsy later confirmed what no one wanted to hear. She had breast cancer. The news hit her like a truck. She said she sat in the doctor's office alone, heart pounding, praying it was all a mistake. She kept thinking, like, I'm young, I'm healthy, I work out, I don't have family history, this can't be real. But it was. And the craziest part, the doctors believed it had been growing for a while. This is how it happens to so many women, putting everyone and everything before their health. She admitted that she'd ignored the signs for too long. She was filming scenes, attending events, and dealing with all the usual drama, but deep down, she knew something wasn't right. Still, she stayed silent. Why? Because she didn't want to seem dramatic, because she thought the show needed her, because, like many women, she was told to smile through the pain. But destiny took an unexpected turn. The diagnosis not only shook her world, it made her reflect on everything. She said she cried herself to sleep every night for weeks, not just from fear, but from guilt. She had ignored her instincts. She had felt her body telling her something was wrong, but she kept moving, kept smiling, kept showing up for everyone but herself. And this is where it gets interesting. She realized that this wasn't just her story. After her diagnosis went public, another Real Housewives castmate reached out privately and shared that she too had faced a breast cancer scare in the past, but had never told anyone. But here's the twist that no one expected. That quiet message from her castmate opened the door to something much bigger, something hidden deep beneath the glitz and chaos of reality TV. More messages started pouring in, not just from fans, but from other Bravo stars. Some were still on the show, others had left years ago. And what they shared in private was chilling. One former housewife admitted that she too had ignored signs of illness for months during her time on the show, afraid that showing weakness would get her cut from episodes. Another said she discovered a lump during filming but stayed silent, fearing it would ruin her brand. That's when it hit her. This wasn't just her personal battle. This was a silent epidemic. What makes this story different? It's not just about one woman's diagnosis. It's about how a world that thrives on appearances can sometimes hide very real pain. These women, constantly under pressure to be perfect, were quietly suffering off camera, and they weren't speaking up. Why? Because no one wants to be the one who brings the mood down. No one wants to be seen as the weak one on a show built on strength, status, and spectacle. But now, one person's honesty was breaking that wall. In a podcast episode that quickly went viral, she poured her heart out. No script, no edit, just raw emotion. She spoke about how the show made her feel like she couldn't stop. I had to keep smiling, she said, as she see it, even when my body was screaming at me to slow down. She admitted to skipping mammograms. She said she once canceled a doctor's appointment because of a reunion taping. And she's not alone. Since her confession, breast cancer awareness clinics across multiple cities reported a surge in appointments just because women heard her story and finally decided to get checked. And here's where it gets even more intense. Bravo, the network that built its empire on luxury and drama, now found itself at a crossroads. At first, their response was silent. Fans noticed. Rumors started. Would they ignore this real-life tragedy to keep the tone of the show light? Would they try to shift attention back to wine throwing and shouting matches? But then came the official statement. Bravo said they were in full support of her journey and commended her bravery. But words weren't enough. What happened next could change reality TV forever. Behind the scenes, producers began discussing something unprecedented, a special episode or maybe even a mini-series, focusing not on drama, but on real-life health challenges faced by the stars. They saw how much her story resonated, how fans cried with her, prayed for her, and started checking their own health. The network realized that this raw, painful honesty wasn't dragging the show down, it was lifting it to a whole new level. But the craziest part, right when fans thought they had heard it all, a cryptic comment appeared on social media. It was from a former housewife who had left the show years ago after her own personal heartbreak. She hadn't been seen in years, but now she was back, showing support and hinting that she too had a story to tell. That one message sent fans into a frenzy. Was she coming back? Would there be a reunion between the two? Or was there another painful secret still waiting to be revealed? This is where it gets emotional. In one of her Instagram lives, she said, "You'd be shocked how many of us are silently battling things the audience never sees. But we smile for the camera because that's what people expect." Those words hit hard. For the first time, fans were seeing the people behind the personas. Women who had always seemed so strong, so untouchable, were now opening up about fear, pain, and regret. And the conversation was spreading like wildfire. The story took another unexpected turn when she revealed something no one saw coming. Her diagnosis nearly went undetected because of one simple, almost deadly decision. She postponed her mammogram for months. Why? Because filming got extended. Events popped up. She kept telling herself, "I'll go next week," until next week turned into nearly half a year. And in a tearful confession, she admitted, "If I had waited even one more month, I might not be here to tell this story." That one sentence spread like wildfire online. People weren't just reacting, they were responding. Clinics began reporting spikes in screenings. Health organizations said traffic on breast cancer awareness pages shot up dramatically. One woman's pain was turning into a wake-up call for thousands. But here's the kicker. Even while her story was gaining massive support, there were whispers that not everyone in the housewives circle was comfortable with this shift. Some cast members worried the tone of the show would change too much. One insider even claimed there were behind-the-scenes conversations about whether her diagnosis would overshadow the upcoming season. That's when fans began asking the big question, would she even return to the show at all? And that's where things got even more intense. Sources close to production revealed she had been absent from filming, missing group outings, and skipping planned shoots. Insiders claimed she was seriously thinking about stepping away from the franchise completely. In a private chat that later got leaked, she reportedly said, "Right now, my energy has to go toward healing, not drama." It was a moment of truth, and it stunned fans who had followed her every move for years. The same woman who once thrived in chaos, who owned every scene with boldness and glam, was now choosing peace, and fans had mixed emotions. But Bravo wasn't letting go so easily. The network reportedly offered her a new kind of role. Less public, more behind the scenes, maybe confessional-style updates, maybe special segments highlighting her recovery and advocacy work. It wouldn't be the same, but it would be something. And this is where it gets interesting. Some producers saw an opportunity not just to support her, but to reshape the franchise. They believed that telling real stories like hers could bring back audiences who had started drifting away from the same old scripted drama. And they weren't wrong. Social media exploded with support. Hashtags like Hot Housewives Strong and We Stand with her trended for days. Celebrities shared her story, health experts praised her honesty, and viewers started saying something that had never been said before: this show is making a difference. That's the craziest part. What started as a private pain was now becoming a public movement. Women of all ages, races, and backgrounds were watching, relating, and acting, especially in Black and Latina communities where late diagnoses are tragically common. Her voice was becoming a lifeline. Meanwhile, another former castmate, long removed from the spotlight, made her own confession. She had also faced a health scare while on the show, but kept it buried. She admitted she was afraid that producers would see her as a liability, not a storyline. Her message: thank you for speaking up. You've given the rest of us permission to stop hiding. And just like that, more doors opened. More conversations began. The pressure to be perfect started to crack. Just when everyone thought the story had settled, just when it felt like we'd heard it all, destiny took an unexpected turn. A final twist no one predicted came straight from her family, and it shook fans to their core. In a deeply personal moment during a live stream interview, her sister stepped forward and revealed something that had never been made public before. Breast cancer ran in their family, but no one talked about it. Their mother had suffered a similar health scare years ago, but chose to keep it hidden from even close relatives. It was always swept under the rug, the sister said. We didn't know. We just didn't talk about those things. That revelation changed everything. Suddenly, the idea that she had no family history turned out to be a painful misunderstanding. This is where it gets chilling. She could have gotten screened earlier if only the silence hadn't been so loud in her own family. And that, she said, was the most heartbreaking part. I didn't just inherit the risk, she explained. I inherited the silence. You won't believe how many women reached out to her afterward, sharing similar stories. Generations of quiet, of fear, of delay. It was a cycle, and she was determined to break it. But here's the craziest part. As this chapter unfolded, Bravo made a bold move. The network didn't just offer her support, they officially announced a special episode dedicated to her journey. Not for ratings, not for spin, it was about truth. It was about honoring the story she had the courage to tell. For the first time in the Real Housewives history, the spotlight wasn't on a feud, a dinner fight, or a fashion show. It was on survival, strength, and sisterhood. And fans embraced it fully. They didn't tune out, they tuned in. They shared their own stories. They booked their checkups. They started talking in ways that reality TV had never encouraged before. What makes this story different? It wasn't just about one woman's diagnosis. It was about every woman who's ever ignored a symptom, every woman who's ever put herself last, every woman who's ever been told to smile for the cameras while hiding the pain off screen. She's now using her platform not just for awareness, but for action. She announced a partnership with a major women's health organization to launch free screening campaigns across underserved communities. And there's even talk of a documentary, one that dives deep into what it means to fight illness while living in the spotlight, one that tells the stories other women were too afraid to share. But here is the shocking part. She said if it hadn't been for the show, for the fans, for the viral moment that pushed her to speak out, she might have continued hiding. You save me as much as I'm trying to save you. So what now? Will she return to the show full time? That remains to be seen. She's left the door open, but made it clear her health and her mission come first. Still, fans are hopeful, not because they miss the glitz and drama, but because they now see her not just as a housewife, but as a warrior A woman who turned a diagnosis into a declaration, a survivor rewriting what reality TV can really stand for. And that's where the story ends, not with drama, but with purpose. She didn't just beat the odds, she changed the game. One voice, one post, one decision to speak when silence was safer. And that's the legacy she's building, one that matters far beyond the screen.